uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Protesting anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of, it's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was so good like this where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, my best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the chariots that carry us to various areas that marry us to progress. Yeah, we the harvest, the lovely days and midnight marauders, even through charges and days of darkness. No, we in the hands of the greatest artists. I see it in the waters, I see it in our daughters. They could be bridges that know no borders. For so long, them folks try to ignore us. So we got the ballot boxes to vote for us. Peace to Stacey and the people of Georgia, who galvanize so that we can move forward. Steps are ordered with the presence of mind. Everything's more beautiful in time.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DrNiiQ, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, have you subscribed to A More Perfect Union podcast? If not, there's no time like the present. We will absolutely, excuse me, you can absolutely depend on us to provide you with interviews with leaders on the front lines, expert analysis on news of the day, and we're going to have a little fun doing it. We're going to have fun doing it. We're going to keep it real. And with that, I want to say happy summer, everybody. It's officially summer. I don't know how hot it is in LA today, but I can tell you it feels like 150 degrees outside here in Washington, D.C. That's why I'm inside doing the show today. But wherever you are, make sure that you're staying hydrated and, you know, enjoying the summer. Enjoying the summer. I love the summer. Don't you love summer? Yeah. Well, now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. First things first, The Guardian is reporting that on militarized LA, speaking of LA, apparently the troops are here to stay as Trump doubles down on deployments. You see, shortly before last November's presidential election, before anyone could envision him defying his America First political base and launching a bombing raid on Iran, Donald Trump offered a preview of how and why he would want to deploy military on US soil. It was the president who said, who talked about dealing with the enemy within. He said, quotes, we have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. That's what he said in a Fox News interview that prompted widespread condemnation at the time. He went on to say that I think it should be very easily handled by, wait for it, National Guard. Or, if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen. That's what he said. So, Trump didn't specify what it was that he didn't want to let happen, only that while he promised to put an end to America's forever wars overseas, he regarded domestic political adversaries, perhaps like the ones that have been protesting in massive numbers in LA and across the US this month, as a national security threat worthy of a military response. And so with thousands of protesters, when they took to the streets in LA earlier this month to protest against his administration and the heavy-handed immigration sweeps targeting workers in factories and car washes, he wasted little time making good on what he had promised. And so we shouldn't be surprised. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be alarmed, but we shouldn't be surprised because he said he was going to do this. He said he was going to do this. And he's doing it, and folks are fighting back with every legal tool that they have, and should continue to. The Trump administration has vowed to keep the troops in place for at least 60 days to ensure, as Pete Hegseth, our U.S. Defense Secretary, told the House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee that, quote, those rioters, looters, and thugs on the other side assaulting our police officers know that we're not going anywhere. And so the threat of a more muscular military confrontation with the quote unquote enemy within, it has not gone away. Though one of the questions remaining is whether the military or the many agencies that are under control of the Department of Homeland Security are more likely to take the lead. And so, that is the word right now. And again, if it can happen in LA, it can happen anywhere. And that's the point. They want to have this happen everywhere. And, are willing to do so by all means necessary. But they may not have the manpower or people power, I should say, to be able to do that. ABC News reporting that the FBI plans to shift agents from immigration enforcement to counterterrorism. The FBI is planning to reallocate potentially thousands of agents away from immigration enforcement to focus on cyber threats and counterterrorism efforts. The shift in resources was prompted in part by the U.S. strikes in Iran over the weekend. The FBI has discussed shifting at least a couple thousand agents away from immigration work to help protect against threats from foreign adversaries, especially Iran. Wow, imagine that. The FBI focusing on real threats, real credible threats, as opposed to what a lot of people say is, cosplay in the streets. I mean, you've seen them, I've seen them. Some of the National Guard members that are out there, there's a presence out there, but a presence for what? A presence for what? I'm not convinced. And if you are, get in a More Perfect group chat on YouTube or use the open mic feature on the KBLA app and sound off. Let me know. But, I don't see a threat in the city of Los Angeles. I don't see a threat in any place that warrants this kind of military presence. I'm not convinced that anything that is jumping off, anything that could pop off, that local law enforcement would not have it under control. And that's the point. Isn't that the point that these public officials have been making? Folks like LA Mayor Karen Bass, folks like California Governor Gavin Newsom. Since the FBI started assigning agents to work on immigration enforcement in support of President Trump's immigration crackdown, agents in the field, they've been expressing concerns that fewer resources were being dedicated to counter terrorism and cyber threats. And so perhaps this is the FBI sort of self-correcting. We shall see. In other news, look, I care about the environment. You care about the environment as part of why KBLA has had such a profound commitment to climate justice. And you can't talk about the climate and not talk about the land. If Trump has his way, 58 million acres of national forests are going to lose their federal protection. That's right. The Trump administration said just yesterday that it would open up 58 million acres of backcountry and national forests to road construction and development, removing protections that have been in place for a quarter of a century. The Agriculture Secretary announced plans to repeal the 2001 roadless rule that had preserved the wild nature of nearly a third of the land in the national forest in the U.S. Now, they say these regulations are outdated. I take that to mean that private industry wants to make some money off of these 58 million acres. And so this is a government that doesn't mind deregulation. This is a government that's not stepping away from opportunities to deregulate. Environmental groups said that the plan could destroy some of America's untouched landscape and promised to challenge it in court. The unspoiled land in question includes the Tongass National Forest in Alaska, North America's largest temperate rainforest, Reddish Knob in the Shenandoah Mountains, one of the highest points in Virginia, and millions of acres of the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness in Idaho. You might remember when President Clinton used his executive authority to protect these forests weeks before leaving office in 2001, it was hailed by conservationists as the most significant step since President Theodore Roosevelt. Since President Roosevelt laid the foundation for the national forest system, and it blocked logging and road building and mining and drilling on 58 million acres of the remaining undeveloped national forest lands. And so when this president says, drill, baby, drill by any means necessary, this is exactly how he intends to meet his goal. When we come forward, I'll be joined with Dr. Jonathan Collins, assistant professor of political science at Columbia University, also a More Perfect Union political contributor. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone peace of mind. Because at Verizon, whether you're already a customer or you're just joining us, we got you. Visit Verizon today. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Are you facing an unexpected financial emergency? You need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com could help you get up to $3,000 fast. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to the name you trust, WeFixMoney.com. If you need emergency cash up to $3,000 for bills or anything else, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to welcome back to the show Dr. Jonathan Collins. He is Assistant Professor of Political Science at the Columbia University. Also, we're proud to have him as a More Perfect Union political contributor. Welcome, Dr. Collins.
Dr. Quartelai, happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. For the folks that are streaming on YouTube, they can see that democracy speaks, according to Dr. Collins. I would add that democracy is speaking right now. But the question is, are folks listening? I want to start with Israel and Iran. They are claiming victory as the ceasefire takes hold. This has been very fragile. Trump looked like got out a little too early and declared there's a ceasefire. And Iran and Israel were looking like a ceasefire. Who said that, right? And this morning, as the president was preparing to board Marine One at the White House, the president got pretty snippy and dropped an F-bomb, expressing his frustration to mostly Israel, but partly to Iran. What do you make of this ceasefire deal? Do you think it's going to hold?
We've already seen that it hasn't. President Trump went back to your point, Dr. Q, and brokered some agreement, the ceasefire agreement between the leadership of Iran and Israel. And then it seemed like, less than 24 hours, it was ceasefire where? Because Israel was already right back to dropping bombs. And, it's Trump's statement, while, seeming a bit off the cuff when he's interviewed, I guess, or responding to reporters on the White House lawn. It seemed as if it was maybe a bit unhinged, but what he said was particularly important. And he got at this idea that, these are two factions that have been in conflict for a very long time. And the idea that a simple and easy ceasefire agreement was going to be something that resolved that, it was unreasonable to even think in the first place. And so, it's a good thing for us to learn as the American citizens when we're evaluating President Trump, because one of the things that we saw in the campaign is that he's supposed to be big and strong. He's the strong leader that Kamala Harris could not be. He's the one who can make the right decisions. He can get the deal done. Well, here was an opportunity to come home with a deal that had major implications for the safety of not just Iran, not just Israel, but the world. We're talking about nuclear facilities, nuclear weaponry. This is a huge deal when it comes to the safety of American people and people around the world. And what we're seeing right now is that he seems a bit in too deep with this.
Mm-hmm. He does. He's in some ways he seems as if he's in too deep. In other ways, it seems he's in the shallow end of the pool and can't seem to find his way out. Because this is a president that pays a lot of attention to how things look and how things sound. We can't forget he is a reality TV president. I mean, most of us know his work as a reality TV star. And second to that, we know him as a real estate developer, right? And
if you're black, you know him from kicking you out of your apartment.
And if you've been around long enough, you remember him taking out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of the Central Park Five, now the exonerated Five. And so, I'm just saying, the ancestor, Dr. Maya Angelou, said, when people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. But I digress. But my point is that President Trump pays a lot of attention to stagecraft, right? Talk to us about some of the visuals, if you will, that we have received from the Trump White House since this past weekend. That photo in the Situation Room, for example, where it looks like he's trying to project control, maybe a comparison to former President Barack Obama when they took out Osama bin Laden. Talk to us about the visuals and what you think President Trump is trying to project, but what he's actually projecting.
Well, it's so interesting that you say this, Dr. Q, because you really hit the nail on the head. Trump has been subtly making these comparisons to Barack Obama in the last 48 hours. Everything that he's done, you could argue, has been from that playbook. So think about it. So, one of the first things that he does is he wants to make this public announcement or give a public speech or public address. And he's very much clearly summoning the exact same course of action Obama took after the successful sort of assassination of Osama bin Laden, where he stands before the nation and lets the world know that Osama bin Laden, has been killed. Trump is trying to have that same type of sort of political and public moment. And then again, you mentioned the photo in the Oval Office. I mean, in the Situation Room, the room where he's trying to look as if he's very much in control and focused and in command in this particular moment in time. And then you also think about the language that he uses too in the tweet that he sends out, where he draws this paradox of, I'm essentially enacting an act of war in order to generate peace, right? And one of the most famous speeches that we remember from the Obama presidency is the speech that he gives after winning the Nobel Prize, where he is confronted with this paradox of, hey, I'm engaged in two wars that I did not enter, but I'm engaged in these two wars. And yet I'm being awarded the most valuable peace prize, the most sacred peace prize, in the history of the world. And how do I reconcile that? And I'm arguing that war becomes a pathway to peace, assuming that the person on top or the actor on top has a deep and sort of ethical, moral, and intrinsic commitment to that. And so Trump is trying to channel this again, but it rings the same way that it always rings. It rings shallow. It rings as when Melania Trump, tries to basically copy Michelle Obama's speech during, I think it was the campaign in 2020, the campaign trail 2024. Every time we see this sort of copy and paste of the
2016,
2016, yep. Mm-hmm. Every time we see this copy and paste of the Obama presidency, it looks empty, it looks flat, and it's so obvious that he's stealing the sauce of one Barack Hussein Obama.
You can't steal that sauce. you can't steal that sauce. We all know the taste. You can't steal that sauce. You can't steal that sauce nor the Chick-fil-A sauce. We know that. But I also want to point out that the New York Times is reporting, following President Trump landing in the Netherlands for the annual meeting with NATO allies, just hours before he landed, I should say, there was a leak of a new U.S. intelligence report that casts doubt on his repeated claim that the American strikes had, quote, obliterated Iran's nuclear programs. President Trump started using the word obliterated before he received his first battle damage report. And since then, he's closely monitored which members of his administration have used the same language. And so we've talked about sort of the stagecraft and the visuals, right? But let's also take a minute to talk about the language. He's using language like obliterated when his own intelligence community is saying, well, wait a minute, there are doubts that we obliterated Iran's nuclear program.
Yeah, I mean, and even before then, there's been these reports of Tulsi Gabbard coming out and saying that there's no evidence of Iran actually having nuclear weapons before Trump even initiates the strike. And going back, that leading up to this, there's just been no concrete evidence coming from the intelligence community that the nuclear weaponry is there. And so, this is consistent with, Trump being the person who wants to create a narrative and act on that narrative, even if there's no evidence underneath to support it. Again, there's an entire line of action around this. Think about the birther movement. President Trump was the first person to come out publicly and say that Barack Obama was not born in the United States. And the birther movement actually had legs. There were people who actually went out and believed that Barack Obama was not a citizen of the United States because of this claim. You think about the kind of misinformation that Trump circulated during the COVID-19 pandemic. He helped to circulate the information that COVID could be cured by bleach. I mean, he has time and time again taken misinformation and created a narrative around it. And it's the scary part to see that happening again right now when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East.
It's scary stuff. When we come forward more with Dr. Jonathan Collins, we're going beyond some of the biggest trending headlines today, including, I don't know if y'all heard about this, but Trump was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize over the Iran-Israel ceasefire deal. Did you hear about this? We're going to talk about this and more when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass are standing firm against ICE raids.
We can't just be silent. That's what Donald Trump wants.
On X, Newsom said he refuses to stay silent or complicit in the Trump administration's mass deportation push, adding that peaceful protest is how real change happens. The prosecution has rested in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial after 29 days and 34 witnesses, including former girlfriends Cassie Ventura and a woman only being referred to as Jane. The defense will not call witnesses but may rest today after submitting evidence. Closing arguments could wrap by Friday before the jury gets the case. And Black Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says July 4th plans remain unchanged despite heightened awareness after U.S. airstrikes in Iran. There's no known threats, but global events will factor into security planning. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Baldwin Park on the 10 westbound before Puente Avenue. It's a crash blocking the left lane. Glendale had trouble on the 134 eastbound past Glendale Avenue with a broken down car. They're waiting for the tow truck in the carpool lane. So things are slow from Bob Hope Drive. Looks like you might be adding more than a half an hour to your drive this afternoon. In Irwindale, stalled car on the 210 freeway eastbound before the 605. It's in the left lane. You stop and go from the 134.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lakers fans will be happy to hear this. NBA sources are saying that Luka Doncic has been incredibly committed to his offseason conditioning. He's on a strict diet and has been doing a lot of cardio training. Some people have seen photos of Doncic, and they say he looks slimmer. After the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by Minnesota, Coach J.J. Redick said some players on the team need to get in better shape. One of those players was Doncic, who the Lakers are counting on to be the new face of the franchise. Doncic was under orders to commit to an offseason conditioning program. A new and improved Doncic will help the Lakers justify trading Anthony Davis to get him. The LA Sparks will try to snap a 3-game losing streak in the WNBA tonight in Chicago against the Sky. The Sparks are 4-10. Live coverage on NBA TV at 5 p.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai. He is assistant professor of political science at Columbia University, and A More Perfect Union political contributor Dr. Jonathan Collins is with us. Dr. Collins, before the break, you pointed out that President Trump is over here trying to fake people out with peddling in Barack Obama sauce. We ain't got the sauce. He ain't got it. He ain't got it,
seasoning.
right?
Not enough seasoning.
Right? And
not enough seasoning, not even close.
And another glaring example of how former President Barack Obama may live rent-free in the mind of President Trump. Did you hear this? Fox News reporting that Trump has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize over the Iran-Israel ceasefire deal. Now, we've already talked about how wobbly this deal is at the moment, but that's not stopping Representative Buddy Carter, Republican of Georgia, who wrote to the Nobel Peace Prize committee declaring that Trump had, quote, an extraordinary and historic role in having ended the, quote, armed conflict between Israel and Iran and preventing the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism from obtaining the most lethal weapon on the planet. Trump declared the 12-day war was ending late Monday afternoon with a ceasefire that was meant to go in effect overnight. But is this another example of Trump sycophants? You just putting a whole lot of sauce on something that don't deserve no sauce.
Yeah, this is the Trump playbook. This is look at me, look over here. I'm just gonna grab your attention with something that I want to distract you from. Because I think the most important thing here is that Trump is choosing not to engage in any kind of serious diplomacy, because that's what the precedent is for presidents to do during these particular times, right? Like, first, we try to see if we can have a rational conversation, bring the leaders together, and to see, okay, how can we work towards, some sort of agreement? Let me tell you how I know this is the precedent for the presidents. It's because what did Trump do when it came to the conflict in Russia, right? Like, he didn't just start going. He didn't just start dropping bombs in Russia. He didn't start, dropping bombs in any of the other sort of conflicts that we've engaged in. What he's done is he's tried to bring leaders together and make it clear that he doesn't want the U.S. to have any strong interventionist role in there, and try to use the threats that the U.S. Economic force and military muscle can have at forcing some sort of agreement and coercion. Why did he skip that here? And I think that's the question that we should be asking. Why did he not choose diplomacy in this situation? And the thing that's important here, I think why he's not choosing diplomacy, is because Israeli politics has become domestic politics for Trump pretty much since the 2024 campaign, right? He has politicized Judaism. He has politicized anti-Semitism and the idea of it. And he's seen that gesturing towards Israel generates a certain level of political capital here that he has been able to use and further his own political agenda. And that's why we're seeing this action here. If Iran was in conflict with any other ally, I don't think we would see this gesture of bombing, and especially bombing places that we don't even have evidence of them having any kind of like nuclear weaponry. I mean, what he's doing is he's overreaching the presidency so far that we have to look at the motives underneath.
And speaking of the motives, the New York Times reported on this in May. It's worth noting that the group behind Project 2025, well, they have a plan to crush the pro-Palestinian movement. Even before President Trump was reelected, the Heritage Foundation, best known for Project 2025, they set out to destroy pro-Palestinian activism in the United States. And so this is not a coincidence. This is not a coincidence that you have, projects like this, Project Esther, which is the foundation's proposal to rapidly dismantle the pro-Palestinian movement in the United States, along with its support at schools and universities, at progressive organizations, and in Congress. And so, I think part of what allows President Trump to control the narrative with visuals and with actions that, when you scratch beneath the surface, are more shallow than you think. Well, part of it is you have this movement work that has been happening in the backdrop and really setting the table. And so I want to encourage our leaders, learners, and listeners to go out there and read about Project Esther coming out of the Heritage Foundation, because it will really help you better understand the actions of this president and this White House.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting too, because I'll take you to class for a second, because what Trump is doing is essentially where Schlesinger's theory meets Neustadt. And so Neustadt had this idea that the presidency really is just about persuasion, that the president isn't supposed to engage in a very aggressive politically or sort of policy related action. They're supposed to serve as his figurehead who sets up a policy agenda. It's why we see the State of the Union address that lays out an agenda that is ultimately adopted by Congress and sort of like negotiated behind the scenes. But then there's this Schlesinger argument that, whoa, no, the president isn't about just signaling things publicly and being a figurehead. The president is about unitary power. And we've seen a growth in unitary power over the course of the 20th century into the 21st century. And the moments where we see that unitary power expand, it's during moments of war and conflict, that presidents use these episodes of conflict to actually grow their own political power. This is Nixon in the 70s with the conflict in Vietnam. We've seen even evidence of this with Carter. This is Bush and Iraq. This is even Obama and what he was able to do in Afghanistan, and especially Bush, with using the executive power to then suddenly take away transparency. It's why, hey, go to the airport. Now suddenly we have to go through all these metal detectors and scans. Do you remember, Dr. Q, going to the airport as a kid?
I remember. It was so much fun going to the airport, and the security was nothing like it is today.
You used to just walk through. You show up at the gate. You walk to the airport. You get your ticket. You show your ticket, and you're right there at the gate. None of the security stuff used to exist. And then we saw Bush exercise executive authority, and suddenly they're scanning everything. Your eyeballs. They scan your lungs, your bladder. Everything is getting scanned now when you go through the airport. And so that's the thing that is worrying me here, is that Trump is actually engaging in these two theoretical ideas at once. On one hand, this masterful persuasion, really getting us to think about this conflict in a very particular way that I think extends beyond what's empirically true. But then also using this as a moment to extend the presidency in ways that it shouldn't be extended.
No, I think you're right. When we come forward, I want to talk about the politics of what's afoot in New York City and Illinois. Right now, we know the New York mayor's race is testing the future of the Democratic Party. And Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois is expected to announce he's running for a third term in 2026. What does all of this mean for the future of the Democratic Party? Do they provide the best hope, or at least a window into how Democrats may find themselves out of the political wilderness? We'll get Dr. Collins' thoughts on that and more when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. He's Dr. Jonathan Collins, Assistant Professor of Political Science at Columbia University, also a contributor to our program. And look, help us read the tea leaves on this. Let's start where you're at right now. What is the mood on the ground in New York? We know that it's been quite a ride in terms of the race for New York City Mayor. I think it's very interesting that we've been, at least nationally, hearing about more candidates for the job than the actual incumbent that holds the job. Does that track with what you are seeing and hearing on the ground in New York?
That tracks perfectly. All we've seen from current Mayor Eric Adams is footage of him smoking hookah in Queens. Everything has been about Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo. Those are the two kind of major leading candidates. And right now, the ethos and the spirit and the energy of New York is all about choosing your fighter. Cuomo, your more establishment Democratic Party candidate, and then Mamdani, who is your ultra progressive, who has folks fired up all over Brooklyn, parts of Manhattan, especially up in our area, Morningside Heights, where he actually grew up. Mamdani's father was a professor also at Columbia, and so he grew up on our campus. Yeah, and so he brings that intellectual perspective. He's a current state representative, but no executive experience, and that's been the big knock on him. But yeah, the election is pretty much taking over the city of New York, and we'll see if the actual voter turnout reflects the energy that we're seeing. But there is definitely energy out here for sure.
So right now, I mean, for folks who are less familiar, New York City does rank voting. And we've seen some alliances made. I've seen the alliance that's been made between the New York City controller, I think Lander is his name, and also Mamdani as well. I saw them appear on, I think, Colbert the other night, of all places. And so are there certain alliances that seem to be picking up steam and gaining more traction than others?
Yeah, the Mamdani Landers win is the big one. And it just really highlights the beauty of ranked choice voting. So for the listeners here, ranked choice voting is a democratic reform. And instead of only voting for one candidate, you get to rank usually your top three. And there's essentially a weighted scoring that gets attached to the candidates based on how you rank them in the voting order. Some ranked choice vote systems also allow actually to rank all of the candidates, but essentially the candidates receive a number of points based off of how high you rank them on your list. And the cool thing about ranked choice voting is that it completely changes the incentive structure for how you campaign. And so in a winner take all me versus the field election, I have no incentive to form any kind of coalition or cooperate. Especially not in the primary stage. The general election stage, sure, we can form a coalition. But at this open primary stage, it's dog eat dog. Well, with ranked choice voting, because of the ability to accrue points, it's actually in your best interest to find these candidates who are somewhat ideologically similar and to campaign together cooperatively, collaboratively. And so it completely changes the dynamic and the spirit of
we know that
this election. It's really a beautiful thing.
Well, we know that this race is being watched not just by New Yorkers, but by Democrats across the country. There are folks that actually see this as a proxy war for an internal battle within the Democratic Party. Do you see it that way?
Oh, absolutely. The knock on the Democratic Party, or the Democratic Party, is at a crossroads, right? Because what was the conversation like in 2024? It was, well, is the party going too left? Is the party going too extreme? Do the progressives have too loud of a voice? And should we focus more on moderate candidates that bring the Democratic Party closer to the center? And, it seemed like that latter voice was winning, this idea that we need moderate candidates, that these more progressive candidates are just too extreme and they're not viable. Bernie Sanders was kind of knocking on the door in 2016 in the primary against Hillary Clinton, but was ultimately unsuccessful, and then failed again in 2020 and didn't get nearly as close during that episode. And it seemed like, is this the death of progressive politics within the Democratic Party? And so now what's happening in New York is what we're seeing is that conflict, that debate is alive and well, and that there are just as many Democrats who are interested in progressive politics as there are Democrats who are interested in more moderate politics. And so it's setting the stage for what should be an incredibly rich, but potentially polarizing presidential primary in 28.
Yeah, I mean, Mamdani's, the fact that he was once 40 points behind and he's closed the gap with Cuomo and he's actually leading in a few polls, it seems to throw cold water on this notion, that the Democrats need to run more moderates in order to win. But, all eyes are on New York City watching this, but not just New York City. Folks are looking in America's heartland. They're looking at Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who announced he's running for a third term in 2026. The Chicago Tribune reporting that he'll announce on Thursday that he'll be seeking a third term, answering questions about his immediate political future, but leaving unanswered whether he'll pursue a longer-term goal of running for president in 2028. Read the tea leaves for us on this in our remaining minutes.
He's definitely gonna run for president. So if you've heard Pritzker's name before, it's because he was a part of the lineup of speakers for Kamala Harris's
for the convention,
the Democratic Party convention. He was on the card. He gave actually very sort of like interesting and compelling speech. He comported himself very well, and the conversation around Pritzker for president kind of started to bubble up in that moment. When he had this sort of relatively successful, public moment at the Democratic Party convention. Is he the new face of the Democratic Party, or the kind of face that the Democratic Party needs? Is up for question. He is very rich, very, very, very rich, and I think going back to what's happening here in New York City and with Mamdani and this kind of like progressive wing, it's an opportunity to move the Democratic Party not only away from too moderate of politics, but to move the Democratic Party away from the idea of oligarchy, right? Like the Republican Party has been okay with oligarchical politics of Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump essentially putting his family as the political successor to his whole MAGA movement. And the Democratic Party, when we go from one Clinton to another Clinton, when we go from one Obama to the idea of running another Obama, it starts to sound like oligarchical politics. Mm-hmm. And what we can potentially get here, and you worry about Pritzker because he's also a part of this elite class. And the Democratic Party for the big D Democrats to be small D Democrats, they really need to get behind and support candidates who are more grassroots, who come from the working class and who can tap into the concerns of the working class Americans.
We're going to have to let that be our final word. Our thanks to Dr. Jonathan Collins of Columbia University for really helping us to understand what's afoot on the ground right now in New York City. All eyes on New York City's primary election for mayor. We look forward to having you back once the dust settles on that. Thank you, Dr. Collins.
Thank you, Dr. Q. I can't wait for this election to be over so these text messages can stop. Leave me alone.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Thank you. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More in our next hour.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams, now running as an independent, says he's unbothered by Democratic frontrunners Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani or Republican Curtis Lewa.
One person doesn't have a record, the other person is running from his record, and I have a record.
Adams pointed to his record on crime, jobs, and handling the pandemic and immigration crisis. Tennessee death row inmate Byron Black is seeking a delay in his August 5th execution, claiming he's mentally unfit due to brain damage, dementia, and disability. His lawyers are asking for a court-ordered evaluation. Black, who is Black, was convicted of killing Angela Clay and her two daughters in 1988. And former U.S. Senator Carol Moseley Braun is